Oh, hey there, friend. How's it going?
Hi, how's it going?
Hi. Hello, everyone. We are in Soul Chat season, and we are here today with Samantha Beikman, also known as Sammy. And we're here to talk about all things Sammy, which I'm really excited about because there's so much. So, Soul Chats, just make sure you say hi if you're here because we don't need to see it otherwise. And I mean, that's fine. We can just chat amongst ourselves too, which is so great because we do that all the time, every day. Sammy came into my life at this time, in this human time, this life, about 18 months ago, and everything's changed drastically in this time. And we have done a soul chat before, but we're doing a fresh one because our community has changed so much. Also, most of the YouTube channel got deleted, so you have to really look for that. You have to physically, if you search in the groups that says soul chats, all the soul chats will come up that were deleted, but we've got tons of them. And so we thought it'd be really fun to reconvene because our relationship has changed so much, like personal, business, and really just kind of reintroducing everybody in the Sanctuaries crew too. And of course, now Pellucidity is an official thing, and we're going to talk about that today. And really, so everyone can get to know our beautiful Sammy. So, Sammy, you are, this is what I put in the descriptions, a teacher, a medium, a coach, and more. You are the true magic maker, manifester. You help so many people. If you are the type of person who has a business and is really struggling with your vision, your mission, what you offer, how to do wording, websites, social media, any of that, Sammy's your person. There's so much of the reason that our community is growing and the way that Pellucidity is growing and the pillars of Sanctuaries is of the dedication that Sammy does every day in the background with me as the COO of Pellucidity. And I'm the fun little CEO. So, she's really dedicated to work. So I'm just saying thanks. You're the best and I love you. And I really would love if you would be so kind to start at the beginning once again and share your experience of the moment you knew your life was going to be a little different.
So I've always been able to see spirit since I was very little. And it started off with me having imaginary friends, according to my parents. But I had all these details about my I had like 11 imaginary friends at any given time, and they all had very specific first names and last names. And I could tell you where they lived and what street they lived on and all these different things. And my parents were like, oh, she's so imaginative. So I was so imaginative and creative that they put me in a bunch of like theater and I would travel and sing and, make a little money that way, or I would be in a play here or there because I was just so creative and so gifted. And what I've come to know as an adult is that I'm a medium and then I'm also very capable of accessing past lives when I need to. And seeing other people's past lives is now, and instead of just like seeing mine and feeling mine and diving into that, I've been able to really start seeing other people's and looking at that. Now, I don't always know when it's going to happen or what makes it happen, but it does happen for me quite a bit now. So that's been really interesting. And I apologize for the dogs barking in the background.
I love it.
They get really excited whenever I'm on.
Feel energy.
Yeah. They're like, you're a part of it.
I mean, they are really important.
Yeah. It got a little scary when I was younger, just because I was seeing, in one of my past lives, I did voodoo in New Orleans in the 20s. And I worked with a lot of demons and lower vibrational entities. And they were coming to me as a child, basically, I know now, to be like, hey, girl, how's it been? But like as a 5-year-old, you're very scared, right? And you're like, what is this? And so I my mom took me around because I was a very fearful, anxious child. when I wasn't on stage and I wasn't performing, I like in the background, I would be very anxious and closed off. So she, you know, she took me to see a priest. And the priest was like, she's got demons or whatever. And we'll, blah, da, 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 da. And that didn't work out. And then she took me to see a woman who was like me. And the woman said, you can shut this off if you want to, and I'll teach you how. And she taught me how to put up barricades and block things out and turn things off and ignore things if I wanted to. So I did that for a while. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I started to get back into things like astrology. And then that led to me looking at things like tarot. And then that led to me questioning, my whole role in the system as an educator. I was teaching in public schools at the time, and it just felt like everything was set up against the children that I was working with, and I wasn't making the right strategies. So I kind of had I was like, okay, I'm scared, but I'm going to start dropping down some of these barriers that I put up when I was younger. And so I did. And then that led me to, in Bloomington, to go do some Reiki, where I met you.
Reiki, the gateway healing.
Exactly. And I really you helped me turn everything back on, and you sat with me and you took care of me and held me through that process. And I'm going to be right back because it sounds like something interesting is happening. But if you want to take it over from there, since you know the rest of that story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll continue on. So as she leaves to go deeper into Hogsmeade, guys, I'm going to get my British accent down eventually and not sound like I'm a drunk French person in the bayou. She came into Reiki, our eyes locked. And through that time, she overheard me chatting about Pellucidity or Pellucidity, depending on whether or not how you want to pronounce it. And how it has the 5 pillars. And she looked at me and she came up and she said, hey. I want to be real weird for a minute. I hope that's all right. And I was like, I'm so into this weird, because especially when I was assisting my teacher with her teaching. So, and she had I don't know, how many people were in your class? 40? It was
60. Yeah, it was so many.
There was so many people. So we didn't really get to talk. So people really had to come up and say, hey, to get our attention. And she did. And she said, I heard you talking about these 5 pillars, and I had this vision. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I said, 2 months ago, I had this wild dream. I was in this building, this massive building, and I looked to my left, and there was a little tea room where all these little girls were dressed up and kids were dressed up in costumes, and they were drinking tea and eating little treats. And then I said, I turned, and then it looked like there was a pirate ship that had crashed into the building. And inside that was a vast library, and it was on a stage. And then I turned a little bit again, and I saw a big indoor playground with Legos and building stuff. And I turned again, and I saw this crafting center, and families were sitting down together, and they were making anywhere from candles to crochet things to just paper art, and just sitting and really crafting and discussing. And then I turned around, and there was this big empty space. Turned again, and there was a giant man in my way. And he said, hi, I'm Michael. I need you to build this. And I was like, hi, Michael. What are you talking about? And he's like, I need you to make this space. The community really needs it. And I said, oh, I'm just a teacher. I don't know anything about businesses or what this is. And he said, follow me to your office. So I'm following behind this big giant man who's very stoic. And he says, come look at your calendar. And I pull up my calendar, and there's budgeting for parents, appropriate homework spaces, psychology for families, all of these little events going on at night. And it's sort of the clear cog kicked in, and I filled in all the blanks in that moment. It's he looked in my eyes, and it was the downloads just came in. And essentially it was a center focusing on 5 different pillars for children and families, and providing a community space for families. That's not like those trampoline parks. They're amazing. They're so fun, but you're not sitting and talking with your kids. You take your kid to a movie. It's really fun. It's a really great time. But again, you're sitting and watching a movie, you're not talking with them. Dinner, most people sit on their cell phones. There's really no space in our communities where families can come together and actually talk. And it's something I noticed over my 9 years of working in public school was that parents and kids didn't know each other. Every year at the beginning of the year, I'd play a little game, like the Newlyweds game, but with parents and kids. So I'd be like, what's your mom's favorite color? Or like, what's your kid or mom's favorite color? And then they'd have to guess. And parents would be like, wow, I really don't know much about like my kids at all. And they're like, and then they felt bad. And I was like, don't feel bad. You work 2 or 3 jobs. You're still going to class. And that, a lot of my parents worked really, really hard to keep their kids where they were. And honestly, the last thing you want to do as a parent after doing all that is come home and be like, I've got a craft kit for us to do tonight. Like, you just don't have the time. And some people just don't have that skill set to really plan those things out. So that space was basically meant for a space where parents could just show up, have a membership, and then do, basically create a family night that way. And so I was like, hey, I'm hearing you talk about these 5 pillars, and my place has 5 pillars. There's like the learning center with the ship. There's the, nutrition center with the food and an outdoor garden. There's the consciousness pillar through like crafting and creating. There's, we started talking about it, and I was like, there's the business pillar with the whole space where parents could come and learn and like educate themselves on budgeting and all of that stuff. I was like, this is so wild that we have this same exact 5 pillars with the same exact themes. Yeah. So now we're here. Building it. Now we're here and it's real.
Yeah. So after that moment in time, we really, and this is what happens, right? We meet people in our lives who change us, and we change each other. And, I know that Kaylee talks a lot about this, about it's not everyone's in your life for forever, and that's okay. Some are seasons, some are just a minute. She really brings that up, and I love that so much, because she knows for me, like, and I'm sure she's talked about with you too, is like how we just love people, right? When that's what our community does, our tribe, we just love people. And we're just like, how do you mean you can only stay for a little bit? It doesn't make any sense. And so I know that you've been really helping me through that too, of just like realizing that like this is a movement, right? And so like everyone has their piece, which is so great. And something that I love so much about what you do as a person is how you connect so genuinely and easy with an entire family. Like, so you guys don't know, like Sammy came into our lives, and our family was like, it was just like a bunch of wild animals, right? It's like Faye in the house. It's nuts, right? And none of us were being seen, heard, valued, or understood. She came in as my son's tutor, and immediately you could see the change in him. It was like they were old friends. And the way that she spoke to him, and he like took to her in that way, right? He's like, oh, trusted him. And my kids are really good about not trusting people immediately, probably being like, that was great. They're like, I don't know. And started with that. And then as our friendship deepened, really, really assessing. And you guys know, as one of Sammy's special skills is to come into a household and speak with everyone. It's true, like family counseling, I swear. And the way that she coaches, and she sits with each person, with my husband, Jared, and hears what he has to see and see. And at that time when my mother-in-law was living here, make sure she was seen, heard, and valued. And then my daughter, right, who is the youngest of this entire crew. And so she spent these last 18 months really working and getting to know our entire family on this level, so she can help create a space like our house to live in, so we all understand each other. So this is something that she just does naturally. But if you guys really want, if you're feeling like your family is not functioning, and the love is there, right? And it's like a communication issue, because of your years of working with neurodivergency, everyone on the spectrum, I mean, you have 11 plus years of experience with this, right? And so here in this household, there's 2 adult undiagnosed neurodivergents. Like, we know right? And then every other beautiful flavor, right? And so one of Sammy's biggest gifts is being able to make it all work, right? And so it's not just in the business, but in family life too. So if you guys are really having struggles, I really recommend, this woman's changed our lives. Like, I get very emotional about it because we speak to each other now. Like, I know how to talk to my beautiful husband, right? And he knows how to, he knows how to listen to me and really hear what I'm saying, and having an explain, because she was able to come in and explain and taking it to another level so we can all feel safe and secure in our relationships. So I'm just saying that is like a special thing that she does, and it's totally worth it, because I just had someone come in my house the other day for Reiki, for soul Reiki, and she was like, "Wow, your house feels so different." And I was like, yeah, implementing all those things. Hello, everyone, for joining. Thanks so much. We're here with Sammy, our COO of Pellucidity in Life, our co-creator, mega manifester, medium teacher, 3D coach, and more. Just kind of chatting about things. Yeah, so we're there. Sorry, there's my gushing love. I got to get it out sometimes, feeling that emotion in that moment. I would love for you, if you feel open to talking about some of your experiences with regard to like seeing spirits and what kind of spirits, and what goes on in your house, and how you kind of manage all of that.
Yeah. So when things came back on, initially it was very scary for me again, because that was the rehearsed reaction I had to a lot of this stuff. And I didn't really know what I was seeing or hearing. And my intuition was not like fully clear. And then as I started unblocking and unpacking some of those things and talking the chance to talk to other mediums, and they were like, nothing can really hurt you. Here's some things. I started putting up really strong boundaries with spirits. So I have a few rules at my house. The first rule being that no one gets to enter into my house. No spirit gets to enter in my house without permission. And so a lot of times when other mediums come to my house, they're like, "Do you know there's like a line of dead people outside your windows?" And I'm like, "I do." The only spirits I let people's spirit team guides into the house. They're free and welcome to come in. Children's spirits, a lot of times I let them in just because I work with kids. That's one of my things. Animal guides, a lot of times I'll see them running through the house, which my dogs are so happy about. And then angels pretty much just kind of do whatever they want. So they're allowed to come in usually, but everything else kind of needs to wait for me to be in a space. I have business hours, basically, just like you would have with your own business. I have business hours with spirit too. So in my house, there's a lot of things going on at any given time. My poor fiance is a theoretical molecular physicist.
Yeah.
So he is so not in this world. But he's kind of, he's seen enough stuff at this point where he's like ghost or not ghost, like we have to kind of work that out. Like, is that a ghost in here? Because like there will be all kinds of weird things. Like the other day, our TV turned on in the middle of the night and it was like playing YouTube. And I was like, how did both the TV get turned on and then YouTube get selected and we're now watching that? And he's like, is there a ghost? And I was like, yeah, I'll go deal with it. And I saw this little like kit ghost shoot from the TV remote over. And I was like, oh man, you got me, just having the best time ever. When he was really sick, I got the chance. I almost never see his guides. He's a very, very private person. And I'm very strict on if someone doesn't want healing or doesn't want to know or doesn't want me to reach out, then I maintain that distance, especially with people that I'm really, really close with, because there has to be boundaries, right? Like,
yeah.
So he was really sick with COVID and he was in bed, and I see this like giant man in like blonde dreads with no shirt and like ripped pants, and he's super thin. And I'm like doing the dishes and I feel something behind me and I turn and he goes, "Hey," and just like ducks into the bedroom where James is. And then like 20 minutes later, James was able to pop up and work on his computer a little bit and get out. And it was really, really awesome. So we have all kinds of fun things that come and visit our house all the time. The cattle dog that I have doesn't always see them, but my little like familiar dog, Twyla, she's a Great Dane Akita mix. She pretty much sees everything all the time. So sorry, Twy.
Well, which was a great protector though, because there are times when some frequencies, energies, entities don't honor your boundaries, right? And so they do come in, and she's right there.
There have been a few times where Allison has been working on someone, and they have a really negative attachment, and I kind of also act a lot of times as like a guardian for a lot of people in our tribe. So I tend to be the one that deals with all the difficult, we'll say, cast of characters. I occasionally have to go into the spirit world during dreams and deal with violent spirits or rough situations or whatever. That's usually I have. The Beikmans are a group of beast people, so we don't usually get very fearful. So we just kind of walk in boldly and handle things. So a lot of times, if there's been a couple times she's worked on somebody who had a negative attachment, and they get zipped into my house, and I'm like, hello. And then I have those boundaries up, so then they get flown out. But it's always really interesting when that happens. And then a couple of nights ago, I've been really stressed out about personal life stuff, so I've not always remembered to, like, normally at night I'll do like a little, like, I'll set my boundaries up. I have a couple of big, large cats from another past life that do a lot of monitoring and guarding, and I'll send them to people sometimes if they're feeling attacked or scared or whatever. I send my cats there, and I usually put up boundaries before I sleep with, like, I'll be left alone during my sleep, we'll be staying safe, all of those beautiful things, because that was the biggest stressor when I was a little kid, was at nighttime when I was alone in my room and everything would just come to me and there was nothing I could do about it. So now as an adult, I've been reparenting that inner child and providing those safety spaces for that. But the other day I had something physically holding blankets over my head and trying to choke me out, and Twyla jumped on the bed and like stood over top of me and got it to go away, whatever it was. And I full body screamed. Like, my fiance woke up and he was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then he had to like help pull the blankets off my face. And it was wild. It was really wild. I've never had that happen since I was a little girl. So I don't know if they're just getting friskier or if I really made something mad or.
Right. There's so many possibilities. And, I love so much how you brought up, reparenting your inner child and reparenting yourself. And can you talk a little bit about how that's kind of really aided the passion in working with children, and really that part of how we work with parents and children and that? Because I know you're so passionate about it and I love it.
I really am. I've been doing that kind of work since I was a kid. I would have kids come to me at school and they called me, therapist, Beikman therapist, or therapist Beikman or whatever. And they would come and they would say, I'm having this problem at home and I don't know what to do. And we would walk through like how their parent was probably feeling in the moment and their response was inappropriate. And this is how you can keep yourself safe. And, so that's been a big passion of mine, even when I was little, working with my classmates, trying to help them through a lot of that. And then now, a lot of times, which is, I'm so incredibly thrilled. There have been several times now where parents have reached out to Allison or I and said, hey, we've got a kid who is going, whose intuitive gifts are kicking in and they're scaring them, or they're going through these moments that they don't understand. And I'm trying my best, but I don't know how to help them, because sometimes your kids don't get the same gifts as you, right? Like, my kids may not be mediums. They might do what Allison does, which is have that extreme, overwhelming need to heal, and like take care of things. And I don't understand anything about that. I have that with kids and animals, but I don't have that with adult people, right? So I'm like, I don't know how to help you with that. So parents have come to us and we've sat down, and Allison really takes the time to, I essentially talk with the child, since, my background is in human development, specifically with child development. And I'll talk with them and get them talking through their feelings on things, and then what they're seeing and what it feels like and what feels good and what doesn't. And we go through intuition and explaining that on a level that makes sense for that child developmentally. And then Allison's always there to kind of reinforce with the parents and make sure the parents feel seen and heard, and make sure the parents are seeing and hearing the child, because it's difficult, especially in families where they've been dealing with this child's issues. Let's say, it's not a great word for it, but they've been dealing with this child having these struggles for a long time, and they're fed up. And so it's nice to have the advocate that's there for the parent and the advocate that's there for the child, and kind of working together. That's been I just feel like every time that's happened, I've been so blessed with being able to help a family. It's one of my favorite things I've done since my since my gifts came back on. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they come back a couple months later and they're like, everything's really good. And we're like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest inspiration for us to really, and we've been talking about this. And so I'd really love for you to kind of get into, we're going to switch gears just a bit, but weave it all together as we do, to really get into how all of this movement and everything had really inspired you to co-create Women of the Wise podcast, right? I mean, I'm always like, I love podcasts and they're great. And you're like, hi, no, this is what's happening. Because you took the time to cultivate it. So can you speak a little about how that came to be and what that is about?
Yeah, Allison and I spend a lot of time talking, like a lot of time talking through so many different things. And I have learned so much from her. She's just so well read, and she has so much knowledge, and then she brings that knowledge component in her life experiences, and I bring my understanding of human behaviors, and we kind of discuss we just discuss it as we just discuss everything. And we started doing some ghost busting around the area, where we'd go in and help people in their houses, and kind of explain to them what's going on and what's in their space, and is there actually anything in their space, or is it an elemental, like what's really happening here. And we had like 4 people in 1 week be like, I could listen to you guys talk all day, you should really start a podcast. And we were like, wait, us? No, I don't want to listen to us talk. And they were like, you talk about things like really in depth and things that I don't even haven't even touched on yet. And I was like, we do, because for us, it's just like, we're both just really deep thinkers. We're really like, we don't do like, hey, how's the weather? We do like, what is your great grandma's name and what was her occupation? And let's analyze her psychologically and how she fits into the grander scheme of how you became who you were. Like, there's no it's all the way in all the time with people. And so, we made the podcast, and we've been having people come on. I've got one that I need to edit that I haven't edited for 2 weeks, just because I'm getting married soon and my life is chaos. But yeah, it's so fun because we have friends that have so much knowledge about things that we wouldn't even think of either. And then they say things, and Allison and I are like, ugh. Like, it just blows our mind. So just having a space for the community to come and speak their truth and get that out there to more people who are asking questions and having knowledge and waking up. And it's just in my opinion, it's a way for us to provide a source that isn't TikTok. And TikTok is great and it's got a lot of great things in there, but this is like, you can really in depth look at, it's like the opposite of TikTok, basically. You can really in depth look at a topic and dive really deep into it. And then the hope is hopefully that people will start writing us and asking questions, and we can make episodes based on that and really start answering some questions for people that way. Cause it's hard. There's so much to know. And, if you have the kinds of gifts that a lot of us have, spirit just throws things on you and you're like, what's an Anunnaki?
Yeah.
They'll just throw a word at you and you're like, I don't know. So having a space where all that stuff is kind of cataloged and you can use it, as well as, I don't know, we both just like to talk, I think. So
yeah. And we love to chat with our friends too. So it's like everyone's coming on. And it's so interesting. That's what's so beautiful about our tribe, is that we all used to be strangers and now we're really getting to know each other. And we all have these beautiful pockets of inner circle, medium, inner, medium, outer. So like really the whole thing. And that's how we used to be, when we lived in our little tribes on the earth or non-earth area, as the case may be, but so full of love. It's awesome. Yeah, you guys should check it out. It's really good. I mean, I'm really also, side note, I'm really bad about speaking into the microphone. I don't know if you guys notice, because I'm always like, I'm far away, like back here, or I'm over here doing this. So my stuff's not great. You can't really hear it, but
your stuff is fine. Your stuff is perfect.
I need an adult microphone, you guys. I know the hogs mean back out. Kaylee, we were just talking about you. We're just like talking about them.
Oh my gosh.
Spirit or team interacting. I'm very often guided to do healing with people I'm connecting with at weird hours. Suddenly their energy is presented to me in light codes or whatever will flow through from me to them. Often deep process of cleansing their entire energetic system at perfect timing for them, optimizing as far as possible at that stage. Then next week, the work will proceed at a new level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're just talking about, right? It's like some healing sometimes is just what it needs to be when it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny how that works.
Mm-hmm. As long as you get an energetic yes from the person to dive into that energy and provide that, I think great job. And if you don't want to be dealing with that in the middle of the night, you can set those boundaries.
Mm-hmm. So come get me at 7:05 when I have my coffee in my hand.
Yeah. All right, guys, I wake up at 9 and I'm ready to go by 11. You can contact me then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Kaylee was all good. We were talking about, what were we talking about? We were talking about
how good she is about the seasons of friendship and how not some people make an appearance. And
this is real life, you guys. This is what happens. I go, what did I say? Sammy goes, he said this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I didn't say this. It happens all the time. So now I would love for you to talk about what other things? There's so many things to talk about. Do you guys, if you have any questions, it is actually technically that half an hour. So please feel free to put questions in there if there's anything you want to know or us recap about. And thank you all so much for joining the soul chats. They're like some of my most favorite things to do because I just love talking to everybody. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I also love talking. So it's a win-win for me. So if there's any questions or, anything you want to comment, and just put it in the comments and we'll read them in question. Oh, oh yeah, Kaylee for the win. Hey, Sammy, how'd you learn Astrodice?
I have been obsessed with astrology, I think, since I was 10. I don't know if that's a past life thing or whatever it is. It's a system. I like systems. I'm very structured and it's very well organized, and it's, beyond thousands of years of research and information that you can pull and use. And so astrology is where I've always felt at home. It's how I view it's the lens in which I view a lot of the world through. Like when I'm dealing with someone, I like to know what their big three are, their sun, their moon, and their rising, because I like to be able to say, okay, so they need to feel secure in this way, and their sun needs to be placated like this. And I kind of use it as my way of moving through the world. And so when I started doing tarot, it's fine. It's good. Unfortunately, with me and tarot, I am not very good at memorizing the cards, and visual images don't speak to me the way that numbers and systems and processes do. And so I don't ever memorize the words. So when I'm doing a reading, what did Jared call it? Is it bibliomancy? That seems
bibliomancy.
I think it's called bibliomancy, which is where what happens to me is I can look at the words and then the words will jump into my eyes and they kind of and then the claircog kicks in and it makes this whole story of what I need, what messages I need. Sometimes a guide will just directly come to me and say, hi, say this. And that's a different thing. But when I use the Astrodice, because I have so much knowledge already in my being of the signs, the planets, and the houses, it's a very intuitive thing for me to be able to cast. And then I think about, how would that planet interact in that house, in that sign? Like, how would all three of those play together? Like, I'm looking at someone's big three, like their sun, moon, and rising. How is that person's big three going to play together and make their unique being? And so usually the house will dictate to me what area in the life where really this is really happening in. The planet tells me like what the lesson is in that house, like what is trying to be conveyed in that part of the life. And then the sign tells me sort of like what their reaction to that is going to be. And so that's how it works for me. I just kind of did it enough times to learn how the dice was speaking to me, kind of like people do different things with pendulums and figure out how the pendulum speaks best to them. That's kind of been my process with Astrodice. So I don't know if that's like technically the right way you're supposed to read Astrodice. I don't know what that looks like, but that's what's been working for me.
Well, I think you can you apply the same rules that when Kaylee teaches tarot, the first thing that she says is how you read it is correct.
Yeah.
And then she goes in and teaches all the things that you add to that. But and so I think that can definitely be applied to that, because how you read it is correct. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys, if you hadn't had an Astrodice, you offer that as like a recorded service too, right? They can ask like one question and you can go. It's so fun. I like sometimes I come over, like sometimes I'm like, hi, can I have my Astrodice roll for the day, please? And it's like, it's almost like you get like because you could do like anything, just like any question, like just like in tarot, right?
Yeah, you can. Sometimes they ignore you and talk about another thing they find is more important, but that happens in tarot too. You know, that would happen to me when I was doing tarot readings for people, where they'd be like, tell me about love in my life. And their guide's like, what we really want to talk about is their inner child right now and how much they need to focus on that. Like, they can't be doing love right now. They're dealing with all, you know, and I was like, okay, but we can't say that to them. So
yeah. So get this out of the way first, and then we can move on to what you really want to talk about, right?
Exactly.
And that's the fun of being a medium too, right? Do you want to, like, because you really can battle royale.
Go back and forth. Yeah. I have fights with spirits and angels and anything a lot, and it's funny because I'll talk to some other mediums and they're like, well, if it's an angel, you just have to do what they say. Or if it's someone on a council, you just, you know, that's just an important thing for you to follow. Or I need to talk to the angels about that. Or I need to talk to the council. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also nothing wrong for you standing up for yourself. The socially acceptable thing to do in that scenario, and making them kind of come outside of their comfort zone and working with you on what's a good solution for that. You don't have to deal with their answer specifically. You can be like, that's so great, and I'm sure in your realm or your dimension that's an appropriate thing to say or do, but we need to figure out a way to compromise with what's going on in the current moment of now, because I think they just kind of forget what it's like to be a living human being sometimes, you know, they're just like not aware of that. And so having you, I feel like I'm sometimes the representative for humanity going into the situation, being like, I know. Yeah.
Kelly says the tool is just a tool. The message is the message. Who cares how? It's so
true. Yeah. And then as long as it's working and it's helping, then people ask me like, will you set up your energetic boundaries? I like push a pyramid out throughout my house, and then I make it grow past my house. And then I send usually little tendrils of light to everyone in my life at the time to like provide a protective coating on there. Some people are like, I can't visualize like that. And I'm like, well, then maybe you need to, someone we know uses a breathing technique where they breathe in and then they push the light out through their breath. I usually teach little kids to use a Patronus. So, like in Harry Potter, where he casts a Patronus and it's this like spirit animal that flies around and protects. I know a lot of little kids can understand that immediately, and they name their Patronus and they know what it is and they know what it looks like. And then I say, now tell your Patronus to walk around your house all night long and keep an eye on things while you go to sleep and get some rest. So yeah, it's like, if things are working for you and they're helping and they're healing, who cares about the how?
Yeah. That's like that feeds my Aquarian sun so much. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's so great.
You are magic. Embrace it.
Another good question. Kayla's killing the question. It's just such a good question. I love it so much. How do you deal with angels screaming in your ears? It's such a good question.
For a long time, I would just be debilitated by it. I'd be like, oh, now I kind of am just like, back off. Sometimes they don't back off. Sometimes it's like a really important message, and I get that sense that it's something that's urgent and I need to address it now. A lot of times it's like when I get the message, there's this new thing that's been happening with Allison and I when we're in person together, we're at big events where I will be able to identify, because we're becoming so closely linked together, I'll be able to identify people that she needs to give codes to. And sometimes it's not an appropriate space. Like we were out getting drinks at a bar the other night, and I was like, oh, you need to give codes to that bartender. So I get the message, and I'm like, great, yep, but that's not what we're doing. We're having a party for one of our friends. We're not doing that right now. We're doing humaning things right now. And so then the screeching starts. Like, this guy needs codes. These guys. So I look at Allison, I'm like, hey, that guy needs codes, doesn't he? And she's like, yeah, because of course she already knows, right? Like, and then I just kind of have to tell him, like, it's not happening right now. That's not what we're doing right now. And then a lot of times I say, well, if you really want him to have the codes, then you'll have him find us at a more appropriate time to do that kind of thing. Because again, there's that human component of like, sometimes we have to be real human beings. We can't just walk around healing random strangers on the street. I mean, we could absolutely do that, but it's not always the most appropriate moment for that to release. So it's important to remind angels, like, we know you want it. We know it's important. Can you provide a different opportunity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've had a conversation with them recently about, I don't like the screeching in my ears, and I'm going to ignore that moving forward. So if you want to contact me, you need to contact me in a different way.
And now
so
they
you can come into my dreams. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
They like stayed. Wait, tell them the story about what happened at Quantum Bliss in Florence.
Which part?
Oh, the part where you were being interrupted with your reading.
I won a raffle, which I've never won a raffle before, and I got a free tarot reading. It was really cool. And I talked to the woman, and she's amazing. She like makes her own. Her and her husband took all these photos and made their own oracle deck out of them, and then she uses those to read from, which I think is just like a genius idea. And so we're doing this reading, and I watch Archangel Michael, walk from where Jennifer Wardlow and Allison are, and he's like walking over to stand behind her, and he's like, hi, and I was like, and he's like, I need you to tell her some things. And I was like, in my brain, like, right now I'm getting a reading. It's not an appropriate time to tell her things. And he's like, yeah, but we've been working together for a long time, but she doesn't always hear my messages exactly right. And I really need her to get some codes from Allison. And I was like, great, not a great time. I'm receiving right now, but he wouldn't let it alone. So finally I like put my hand on her hand, and I could tell she was going through some throat chakra stuff. So I started talking about how important her words were. And she goes, the lady stopped. She goes, are you giving me a reading right now? She's like, you can get a reading right now. Sometimes it's okay to receive. And I was like, I would love to sit here and just receive a reading. But unfortunately, Archangel Michael is behind you right now, and he's got many things to say. And she's like, oh my gosh, I work with him. And I'm like, I know. And so I was able to kind of get him quiet. And once he was recognized by her, he like let it go. And then at the end of it, I was like, hey, I've got a friend. She does this thing called soul language. I explained what soul language was. I said, it can be a little shocking to the brain at first, but your heart and soul will really fall into it. I was like, is it okay if we come over and give you some codes? And she was like, well, when is that going to happen? And I was like, probably right now. So I grabbed Allison right after my reading, and she sat down, and the lady's like, oh, you're intense. And Allison's like, yes.
Yeah, you've got angels. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. You're working with angels, honey. It's all intense. That's how that goes.
And so that's what's been really fun of us cultivating this in-person stuff. So as we start meeting everyone and coming together, like sometimes I daydream. We daydream a lot, you guys, about when we go over to the UK and get to hug all of our UK people. This is like practice for that. We're putting the blueprint together. So once the blueprint is a little bit, I know this is like, now I'm like, can we talk about this? And can we talk about this too? Can you talk a little bit about what Pellucidity All right, that's the correct way to say it, you guys. I don't say it like that. It's Pellucidity and it's our company. I can say it how I want. Look, now they're screaming at me.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about what the plan is? Like how do I put this? How do I put this in form without taking over the conversation? What's our long-term goal for Pellucidity?
So the long-term goal for Pellucidity, which Say Unistay is essentially the consciousness pillar of Pellucidity. So the long-term goal of Pellucidity in Life is to create global sanctuaries throughout the world. We're predicting decentralization will start happening in about 3 years. And it's going to be more of a global decentralization than just here in America. We've been given a little bit of details about some things that might be causing a little bit of uprising in other countries as well. And so one of our big concerns is making sure there's a safe place for people who just don't fit into regular society. And so that may look like people with intuitive gifts. That might look like people who are neurodivergent. That might look like people who are LGBTQIA+. Having a safe space to go where they will be nourished and all of their 5 pillar needs, as we've discussed before, will be taken care of on site. And it'll be more like they come into the community and they provide for one of those services. It's not really like they come into the community and they pay to be there sort of thing. It's like we're all kind of working in a way together to create these safe spaces. It feels a little bit lately like certain areas of certain sanctuaries will have certain focuses. For example, in Bloomington, a lot of us are really passionate about women and children being able to get out of really scary situations and bring their animals with them and have a safe place to land where the female can take care of everyone in her family. I know in Michigan, there's a lot of talk about dealing with people who are experiencing extreme deep grief, like the loss of a sibling, the loss of a parent, the loss of a spouse. And they're really coming out of this massive grieving period. And a lot of the people there are kind of passionate about dealing with that. So that's the major goal of Pellucidity in Life moving forward. Is that what you were meaning? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, guys.
So we're looking for land right now. We're talking with some elders in our community here in Bloomington and looking at their spaces and seeing what it can kind of house. We're not sure if it'll all be housed on one campus or if it'll be like different places in the area where people will be able to go to get the different things. Like they may live in one area, but then to be able to work the farm, they might go to another section of land to do that during the day. We're not really sure what that looks like yet, but we just trust that Spirit's going to help us work through that.
Yeah. Spirits and tribe coming together, whatever that means, however that means. And while all this is going on, where can people find you? How can people connect to you directly, dear friend?
I'm on the Say Unistay website, sayunistay.com/Sammy, I think. I'm also on the Pellucidity in Life website, which is just www.pellucityinlife.com. I'm all over there. We have a TikTok called Pellucidity in Life, if you want to find us on TikTok. The Say Unistay YouTube channel. I'm not on there a ton, but I am always in the background doing like titling and descriptions and hashtags and SEO tags and all that fun stuff. And then you can email me at samantha@pellucityinlife.com.
Mm-hmm. Great. We have a question. I love this so much because I realized we didn't talk about it. I feel like my shadow work has not let up recently. Is this happening to other people?
Yeah. This is a massive turn that we're all going through. And so it's like getting prepared to deal with some really rough stuff is what I've been getting. And so because a lot of us turn to our shadows and we just live directly in that shadow self, when things get rough, I feel like right now we're all kind of being called to integrate that more into ourselves so the shadow can find strength in the rest of the being and provide what it's there to provide, which is survival reactions, right? I think a lot of our shadow selves come from reactions we've had to survival. And so integrating that and getting that in the person, so that's a more healthy and heard piece of ourselves, has been really important in this turn, because we're getting ready to have to be, a lot of us are getting ready to be called to be the strongholds for many groups of people, or for many places. I mean, you probably already feel it at your job. You probably already feel people coming to you and asking you for advice, or you probably already feel called to be doing some kind of healing work, right? So those of us who are doing that are really trying to work through our stuff now, so that we can be the strength in other people's lives as they're getting ready to go for it. At least Allison and I find that we tend to go through a phase before the rest of the world goes through that phase. And then we've had that firsthand experience dealing with it, so we know how to help moving forward.
Yeah, we do this really amazing thing. Sometimes we do lives, but we also do a recorded thing with Kaylee, and it's called Practically Healing the Shadow. And so Kaylee goes through and like locates it and finds it. It's incredible. Like, it's just, sometimes I sit there, I'm just like, oh my God, like, how did you even get there, right? And then it comes to me, and I do all the coding and the clearing and all that, the healing part too. And then, you know, it steps into that. And then you give them the practical steps, the finishing the healing and practical steps, how to move on. So I don't know if anyone's interested in that. You can reach out. I actually don't even think we have the service listed anywhere. It's kind of like people have just been asking us. I'm like, we've got this thing. Sometimes we do a live. Yeah. That's something that definitely we talk about all the time. Yeah, we should do another one of those soon. That's actually a great idea, Kaylee. Oh, Kaylee for the win. Yeah.
And just like Kaylee said, shadow work is ongoing. Like, you integrate a part of it into yourself, and then like 2 days later, you're like, oh, here's another thing that needs to be heard and seen.
Yeah. People will even show up at my door for healing emergencies. Yeah. It's coming, you guys. Like, it's happening, and it's real, and it's okay. Like, that's so much why we've created this home base, this home, you know, so we can come and go, and you know, and you'll be seeing us a lot more, and me especially. Kaylee's been so good about being the consistent person, being on live all the time. You know, and I'm so grateful for that. And, you know, Lorna's really like crazy live too. And, you know, so we're really getting back into it after this crazy summer adventure, but you'll be seeing us a lot more, and seeing Sammy really being often this work. It's not only about healing the other, since we're all connected. It will lift off these energies from my system as well, which will feel like a huge relief. It's already in my field, which is also the way I'll be aware and detect condition. It will stay there until cleared. It seems that some of us are working as an energetic team behind the scene. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, we talk about this too, and this is something we work on. And I think I may have even, I was blabbing somewhere, the healing circle chat group is, I always ask to receive as I give, right? So it stays even, it stays balanced. And that's something that I think we all kind of learned together this past year. And it's incredible how, when you really start to find, you guys, 18 months ago, I asked for my people, like my inner circle, people who I could trust and love, and who would tell me the truth, right? And I literally proved like that. Sammy and Kaylee and Lorna, they just showed up. And here, you know, and so like, and all these people, so start asking for them, start asking for your Sammy, start asking, you know, for these other people. And this is something that I know, Sammy, we talk about all the time, is how important it is to have our structured circle. I don't know what I would do without my support, my human support, right? Our things that come, and now we get to have, and then we're like, okay, I was like, everyone's far away. We need more people in the community, right? So then you can get you and ask for your people to come. And people like just started moving here, or showing up, or living close enough. And now we get to go out and we get to do our magical stuff, right? Where we do house clearings and, you know, healing and all of that. But then we get to go have coffee and dinner and laugh, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I was telling someone the other day, I was like, I feel like you and I experience magic almost daily now.
Yeah.
Like, we're finding people who are incredible. You know, we're finding out incredible pieces of information. Like every day, I feel like there's something incredibly magical that happens to us. And I would never have expected this 18 months ago.
And then, you know what came out of that, which is that they're just were like, hi, are you going to talk about this other thing? I was like, oh, yeah, because we're getting ready to wrap up. This is how you birthed Find Your Path.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that before we wrap up?
Yeah, we were trying to figure out a way. A lot of people were waking up and asking Allison questions, and she's really good about getting back to them. And I was wanting to dive into different modalities, but I didn't really want to pay for all of those modalities. And I didn't really know if it was a trusted site, and there's all that stuff that goes into it too, right? So we were talking about doing an expo or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, well, what if we just like collected, she's like, we have a bunch of friends now. They all specialize in different areas. What if we all just got together and like did a retreat weekend where people just got to learn a little bit about each of these topics? And so it just really, it developed. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, it could be called Find Your Path. And it's a space where you can learn for cheap it's $100 a weekend for the weekend, but you get 8 classes for $100, which is a lot cheaper than some of these things that, herbalism, that's like thousands and thousands of dollars and tons of products, but you can kind of get your feet wet in that area. You're not going to walk away with an herbalism certification. I don't even know if that's a thing, but you can get your feet wet and be like, okay, wait, this is not something that I'm interested in actually, but this tarot over here is a thing that I'm interested in. So you kind of know where to focus. And then we were also like, it's a great space for us to meet more magical people, right? And for other magical people to meet each other and to be able to see people that you can go and ask questions and trust. Because that's the hardest thing when you're first waking up is, I don't have anyone to ask these questions to. I have all these questions and I don't know what to do with them and don't know how to get them resolved, because you can YouTube it, you can TikTok it, but like you watch 3 or 4 different TikToks on the same concept and you're getting 3 or 4 different answers of what it is. And so it's like, that learning on how to discern with me what is the right answer for me was a really difficult thing. And all of our friends are really good about saying, well, this is what happens to me, but what feels correct to you?
Yeah.
And it was important for us to have a space where we knew everyone that was teaching there would be like, well, I think this, or this is what's true for me. What feels true for you? And so we've just collected a bunch of teachers that are really good about honoring people's divine sovereignty and their perspectives on things, but then also being able to answer those questions when needed.
Mm-hmm. And now we travel with that. We're doing one in Roanoke, Virginia, November 15th and 15th. It's going to be amazing at Glow Healing Arts. And that's what, so if you guys are interested in having it come to your town, we've got the teachers. We have like a whole thing. If that's something, we could email Sammy.
We all love hanging out together too. So pretty much we're all just like, what town are we going to hang out for a weekend? Sure.
More of the tribe, more people, allowing the community, because that's really where we are feeling moved to focus on, is really these super in-person things. Just talking to the kids, they are really like mostly over learning anything online, because that they did school for 2 years in COVID, and they're just like, they want to meet in person because they don't hang out in neighborhoods and they don't go out. They're not kicked out of their house. You know what I mean? Right? Like this just doesn't happen that way anymore, because we grew up like that and we're like, that was real dangerous.
Yeah.
Another inspiration on the co-created communities too.
Yeah, we've also been thinking about offering different kinds of weekends. So like a continuing your path, where we can come and do more advanced classes for those in your community that are already advanced healers. We could even do like a kids kind of Find Your Path, where it's sort of geared more towards children and, obviously things, not necessarily the information pared down, because they can still learn just as much as an adult can, but kind of taught in a different context sort of thing. So
kids too, and parents, and
family Find Your Path. That would be so fun.
Yeah,
is that what you were saying?
Yeah,
that would be
putting that together right now. So just stay around, stay connected. You really can find Sammy anywhere there something's happening. Sammy's there most of the time. She's like really dedicated to making sure things run. I'm telling you guys, if you need organization or any help, like that 3D coach stuff that she does is worth every dollar because you can do it. You're just like, oh, she figures out how you work and then optimizes it and sits with you with the challenges and helps guide and teach and coach you to like achieve and your challenges then turn into more strengths, right? And then you get another challenge. But it's a never ending spiral. So we're hitting an hour right now. Please reach out. You can find Sammy literally anywhere. It's in the, hi at pellucidatinglife.com, hello at pellucidatinglife.com, because I had like both because I'm like that. Sammy's directly there at Samantha at pellucidatinglife.com if you just want to email, reach out to us as it is. Thanks so much for joining us for this soul chat. Sammy, thanks so much for saying yes and coming on and doing it again. I appreciate you and I love you.
Yeah. It's been so fun.
Yeah. I think that's all we got for now. You know where to catch us. We're going to be doing, we're going to connect with Kaylee and figure out when we're going to do our next Practically Healing the Shadow. So thank you all so much for joining. Feel free to check out the other soul chats in the Soul Tribe. You're going to just have to search for soul chats, the old ones. I'm going to somehow figure out how to get them downloaded and then upload them back up onto YouTube. I don't know why they're safe, but sometimes that's what happens. Until next time. Ending broadcast. Do, 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 do.